All right. Yes, such a calming visual as we get going on day 3 of our weight loss and wellness challenge. We'd love to hear from you as we get going. This is going to be a big day, lots of questions on all the meal consistency, rhythm, and timing for your hormone balance and your weight loss and your wellness. So today we're going to show you it's more about when you eat. It's not as much about what, which is what you might have operated from previously. And it's even about how you eat. So when and how. We're going to ensure you are absorbing your nutrients, and we're going to talk about movement for metabolism, reminding you of our foundational principles or pillars, I guess: mindset, movement, and micronutrients applied to your wellness goals. So applied to hormone balance and weight loss here today.
And some of the main kind of questions that we'll be answering today. So we're going to go over what is time restricted eating and is it right for you? What is the best window of eating? We're going to go into cellular health and digestive rhythms. And we're really going to continue kind of reviewing elements that we've talked about in the last 2 days. So things like hormones, inflammation, oxidative stress, because we really want to bring everything together for you guys.
It's about practice, practice, practice in hearing this information. So whether some of it is going over your head or some of it's too basic, just listening to all of it will remind you of these practices.
Absorbing it.
Sorry, what?
I said absorbing it.
That's a good one, yes. So a medical disclaimer, as you know, this is just for informational purposes only. We love to talk about this privately, really personalized to you. So anything we talk about today is not a prescription. It's just information seeking and building so that we can talk about it further. Today is all about nourishing your rhythms. And I want to emphasize the word nourishment. Nourish your mind and body. And so looking at looking at diet from a different perspective, not diet, right? So it's like the undiet. We're talking about the hormone rhythm diet, maybe, or just the rhythm diet. I really like that. Kira and I have talked about it. It resonates with us. So we want you to focus on, instead of any diet or weight loss plan, this is about nourishing your rhythms. Yesterday we had some questions about diet and weight loss, and that's not what we're talking about today. This is a new insight for you. We're looking at your rhythm diet.
Yeah, and I love that it's all about when we take the mindset off just the weight loss goals and really focusing on our internal rhythms. So for me, I'm so passionate about like hormone rhythms and kind of getting into the balance, the ebb and the flow of the hormone rhythms. And we really want to get our rhythms working for us in order to support our hormone balance, and then of course our metabolism as well. So these are kind of the main rhythms that we want to talk about nourishing today. So we want to go over the hormone rhythms, which we've talked about a lot before. Sleep rhythms, that was a big thing on our day 2, talking about how important those sleep rhythms are. Our cellular rhythms, we're going to dive into today. Same with our nutrition and digestive rhythms, movement rhythms. And then there's another rhythm, which is something we talk about so much. I don't know if you guys will be able to guess what that one is, but it's Tara?
Mindset.
Yeah.
And we actually wanted to see, would you put a number 6 there, a different one? So mindset came up for us, but what other rhythm? There's many. So give us a comment in the chat about other rhythms that you think apply to here for what you want to nourish, and how you want to look at your metabolism, hormones, and weight from a different perspective. All right. Okay. So if weight loss is the goal, we always hear that in visits. It's like the primary concern listed on intake forms, weight loss. And so by going through our naturopathic intake, we get into really the more important things, and that's where rhythm comes up. So when you're thinking about that goal next time and what your first goal would be, let's expand it out to say, I want more energy. I want to improve my sleep quality. When you hold on to that weight loss goal, as you're holding onto it rigidly, it's harder for it to happen. So let go of that and get into wellness, and then you'll see and you'll experience how that weight loss goal dissipates and happens. It happens when you let it go.
Yeah, the focusing on the nourishing, the nourishing of the body and all these rhythms. And so then we're going to go, I think the next thing we're going to talk about is assessing your rhythms. Delay.
Oh, delay. Yeah. Now it went too far forward.
One back. So
I'm getting to the assessment. There we go.
There. Okay, so this is, yes, we're going to talk about assessing your rhythms. And the one tool is the circadian rhythm tracking tool, which you guys have. It's in the Facebook group and we've emailed it out, but you guys are doing such a great job of kind of tracking that through the sleep, wake, eating cycles. And then the testing and nourishing your rhythm. So Dr. Terry, you're going to tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, this is, get your pen and paper out. I'm going to ask you a few questions. You just have to write yes, no, so or Y and N, and then we're going to count up how many yeses you give. Okay, so do you take less than 5,000 steps a day? A quick jotting down. Do you spend less than an hour outdoors under daylight each day? Do you exercise after 9 p.m.? Do you spend more than an hour on your computer, your phone, or watching TV before bedtime? Do you have one or more alcoholic drinks? So a cocktail, wine, or beer after dinner? Do you forget to drink water throughout the day? Do you drink coffee, tea, or caffeinated soda in the afternoon or evening? Do you consume chocolates, high carb foods like donut or pizza, or energy drinks to improve your energy level? So keep answering Y or N. Do you binge on foods late in the day regardless of hunger? Do you drink or eat anything other than water after 7 p.m.? Do you sleep with the light on or cracks of light that come through? Do you set aside less than 7 hours for sleep and rest every day? So do you set aside less than 7 hours of sleep and rest per day? Or do you make time for more? So do you need an alarm clock to wake up in the morning? And do you eat whenever food is presented to you, even though you are not hungry? So count up your Y's and count up your N's. And we will be attaching this as a handout in the Facebook page and in the emails. And so you can see the actual questions. It is a survey. Okay, so if you answered yes to any one of these questions, that's a circadian rhythm disruptor. So just one is, so if you have more than one, it actually is good because it shows you where you need to go for bringing your rhythms back in check. And that's what, now we're going to go into the rhythms that we said, and then you'll see where you, now you know where you need to go, and we'll be touching on all of those.
Okay, so this is a recap of what we've talked about in the last few days. So really looking at the hormone rhythms. So remembering that they all the steroid hormone pathways start with cholesterol, and then it's being broken down into the different hormones. So there's the calming pathway that we talked about where cholesterol goes into progesterone, and then progesterone is metabolized into cortisol, so that fight or flight hormone in the adrenal glands. And then we have the other side where the cholesterol is then going to the DHEA and the androgens, testosterone and estrogen. And remembering that there's a rhythm to all of these hormones and there's a balance to them, as well as the insulin, leptin, and ghrelin, which very much impact our metabolism and things like that. So just remembering that there's an optimal rhythm to all of this.
I always think of ghrelin eating leptin now when I hear those two words.
That was great. That was good.
And now what is leptin and ghrelin? So these are your hunger and fullness cues, part of your cellular pathways. When you're thinking of nutrition, exercise, diet, weight loss, think cellular rhythms. And in terms of your hunger fullness pathways, your cells work on a circadian rhythm. And this is when we're hungry, we increase our ghrelin to eat. And when we're full and we're satiated, we increase our leptin and we stop the ghrelin. So basically your hunger cue is your ghrelin, and your fullness cue is your leptin. So it's if these two have a circadian rhythm, and when you're not eating at consistent times, you're throwing off that leptin ghrelin signaling.
Yeah, and then that kind of leads into the energy metabolism too, because that is in the way that our body is metabolizing the energy that we're consuming. So whether that's the carbohydrates, fats, proteins, like it's not happening on a continual basis either. Like it's happening on a circadian basis. So when we eat something, for example, like a carbohydrate that breaks down into a sugar, and then that's being either stored as glycogen or fat in the body, and then we're not able to break down fat at that time. So it's just kind of remembering that even the energy metabolism is also on this like circadian rhythm as well.
Yeah, so interesting. And then so we are actually trillions of cells. Our bodies are made up of cells. And so thinking of all those cells having a circadian cycle to them, then your organs having circadian, then, your organ systems, and then so your whole body is operating, and it's governed by external things too, like light or when we eat. So there's this interplay between cells, our actions, our behaviors, and what we're exposed to. In terms of maintenance, repair, and rejuvenation of your cells, I like to think of antioxidant health here. So every chemical reaction in your body gives off reactive oxygen species. We talk about oxidants, right? Your car is giving off oxidants. The gas is an oxidant, and that's, you're breathing that in, it's coming into your body, and it's trying to get stable. So we want antioxidants to quench that oxidant. So it's actually interesting to know that your cells, they have chemical reactions every second, and they're giving off oxidants as they do that action. And so we have these internal oxidative measures that we want our cells working really well to clean up the debris. I found that really fascinating. Actually, I haven't paired that verbally until planning this presentation and preparing that. Oh my gosh, our body actually, regardless of oxidants we're breathing in, we are making oxidants. So our antioxidant health is really important for maintenance, repair, and cellular rejuvenation.
Yeah, and with that, in terms of that rejuvenation, it's like that's something that is happening, all the time. Our body is rejuvenating and repairing. And when is this mostly happening? It's happening at sleep. So that's another reason why sleep is so important, because that is when our gut lining is repairing and regenerating so that it can protect us from, most of our immune system there. So it's protecting us from that way, even cellular turnover, skin health, all of that stuff. Like that's all that cell rejuvenation happens at nighttime. So that's again why the sleep is so important there.
And when weight loss becomes difficult, it's like these things, the cellular piece has gone off track, and we need to bring it back on track. You need to get your cells communicating with each other. I really love looking at kids. Their internal clocks are so precise, right? And when they go over their windows or when they're under, it's just they're right bang on. It's really fascinating. Then the medication and supplements. Yeah, Kira, you go.
Yeah, so what we were just kind of highlighting here is that there's also going to be like an optimal time to take certain medications like thyroid medication and certain supplements. And again, that's all about us wanting to work with our cellular rhythms in order to support our bodies, all of those different processes, which of course, when the goal is weight loss, that's going to help us get there when the body's just functioning better from all of these different aspects.
Mm-hmm. Let's do a few examples, and we'll do vitamins first. So B vitamins, when do you take B vitamins? Do you think you would take that in the morning or the evening? I can't see the chat, Kira, right now. I'm focusing on the presentation. So you read the chat to me.
Oh, okay, so someone just wrote evening.
Other guesses?
Oh, someone else wrote morning.
Yeah, so B vitamins are best in the morning. They are
energizing.
Take them in the energizing time to sustain your energy throughout the day. Sometimes we prescribe B vitamins in the morning and then again at lunch for when people are noticing that afternoon slump. So it's just a way to augment it a little further. Remember, testosterone high in the morning, but then to boost it a little in the afternoon, work out so you raise the testosterone. When would you take thyroid medication?
Someone said lunch is fasting, which is right, because you want to take it with food.
For thyroid medication?
Thyroid is a good one. Thyroid first thing. Yeah, for thyroid in the morning as well.
Yes. Although I have to say, and Kira, you've probably seen this in practice too, some people take their thyroid before bed, and
I've seen 2 a day dosing too. Yeah.
yeah. So that's interesting. And then also cholesterol medication. When would you take cholesterol medication? If you just think about it, you don't have to be taking cholesterol medication to understand the question of when do you think it would pair best, or we can say a cholesterol metabolizing supplement or medication. Are any answers coming?
No guesses there.
No guesses? Okay, so
oh, morning came through.
Morning, and then usually it's actually at dinner because that's the highest cholesterol based meal, or heaviest meal, but in some cultures lunch, and here too maybe lunch. But I find that a lot of people take cholesterol medication right before bed, which what we're talking about here is that's when you're shutting down your digestive processes, shutting down your system. So it's not the ideal time to take that. So yeah, all supplementation wise, there was a comment in the chat a few days ago. I loved it on the Facebook page, just asking how can we naturally bring our body back into rhythm instead of supplements, because the melatonin suppositories or whatnot. Our goal is not to give you supplements, right? But when we do, it's to ignite your own natural rhythms, and then you wouldn't always need that. So everything we do is about bringing your body back into balance.
Mm-hmm.
I have a little sensitive keyboard here.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay. Number 3, nutrition and digestive rhythms. And here we're talking about first bite and your last bite. So going to your circadian tracking rhythms. Look at your typical first morning, or whenever you first put food in your system. Let's just go food wise. We'll not worry about coffee and that. We will address that later. But what is the first bite of food you have and the last bite of food you have? And that is your eating window. So give us a comment in the chat line what your typical eating window is.
Oh, there, 10 to 6, 12 to 6. So that's 8 hours and 6 hours, if my math is good. 12 to 8, 10 to 7, 12 to 8.
So now do the math on the amount of hours that is. So that's your eating window. So that would 12 to 6 was that? Someone said 12 to 6?
Yes, there was a 12 to 6.
That's a really short window. That is a 6-hour window.
Yeah, and there's some 8-hour windows, a 12-hour window. Yeah.
Okay, so now you understand what we're meaning by that window. So we're going to talk about the window and exact specifics. So we'll wait for that. Now you know your eating window. Mealtime consistency is really important. This is probably one of my important goals, to get more consistent with meal times like children. When is breakfast, lunch, and dinner? But make sure every day it's a similar time. Yeah, I actually love my partner. He has this down pat. And I admire it that, here I am prepping for the presentation here this morning. He's making sure he has his breakfast. So you can't have breakfast. So yeah, really, when you have your meeting times or your meal time is an important measure of health. What counts as eating? A lot of you asked about coffee, lemon water, supplements even. And yesterday, a client and I were talking about glucose monitoring, and this is great. I actually want to get one to measure this, to see. It tells you when you break your fast. And so I want to know how much coffee is opening up the window, how much supplements open it, like taking a probiotic. Does that count as your system starting? Do you have any thoughts on that, Kira, for what counts as first?
What counts as eating?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What counts as opening up your digestive system?
Yeah. So I think it's really anything that you have that's not water, really, in the sense of what's getting your liver and things like that going. Again, we can, depending on our goals and depending on how we feel in the morning. It's because for some people, like maybe if they have something that's caffeinated, like a coffee or a tea, and then they wait a few hours before they eat, they feel good. But for other people, that might ignite some anxiety and get the fight or flight center going. So I think you can individualize all this kind of based on what your goals are. But I think anything that's going to kind of kickstart that digestive process is what would count as eating, I think.
Mm-hmm. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking, and make eating count. Like,
what do you mean?
Make it count. Like, sit, enjoy,
yes, of course.
Right? Yeah, not oh, does this count or not? I'm on the run. I'm having, this. No, really sit and make it count. And gut motility is really important too. Another important rhythm. Digestive symptoms you're all familiar with, from constipation, diarrhea, cramping. These are all signs of your rhythm being off kilter. And so we talk about gut motility. So when you have constipation, it means your food, when you eat, it triggers this forward motion all through your body. You don't want it too fast, and you don't want it slow, and you don't want it stopping, right? So when you're eating and it's going through and you get a bowel movement triggering, maybe not right after eating, but you know what I mean, you eat and things go through you and you pass it out, that is gut motility. That's not working well for you. That's a sign of a major rhythm being off track. And then it's a great area that we love to delve into as naturopathic doctors. Yeah.
Yeah. And the rhythm that we went over that in day 2 too, in terms of that, like our digestive system should be working during the day. And that's first triggered with your meal during the day and then taking a break at night. So it is all, and the state that you're eating in as well. So all of that's going to kind of impact that gut motility rhythm.
Yeah. And it brings up night snacking too, right? Like in the middle of the night, some people do get up, they're hungry, they feel that. So it's like a hunger cue that shouldn't be happening at that time, and going and eating at that time, that your digestive enzymes and your digestive processes are actually shut down at that time. So it's not a great time to eat and absorb nutrients. So let that be maybe a reason that deters you from having the snack at night or in the middle of the night or even before bed. Yeah. Okay. I have to say a funny story on that. My daughter woke up at 2 a.m. and she said, I'm hungry. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, like it is painful when you're hungry and you're lying in bed, right? And I thought, oh, okay. We went downstairs and I gave her yogurt. She was asking for yogurt. And then the next morning I thought, what did I do? I just now am making this a habit of her eating and turning it on again. And so I just, in the moment, I couldn't do it. I couldn't say, no, she doesn't need food and keep going. So we challenge ourselves. We can have awareness. We can look at it and really learn about these important rhythms. Time restricted eating. Favorite topic.
Yeah. So what is time restricted eating? So we don't really love the restrictive part of it, because that's kind of going back to or for me at least, like it kind of reminds me of more of that like diet approach, but instead thinking more of just the timed eating. So just like your eating window. So what is your eating window in the day? And really that's what time restricted eating is about. So it's really about what are those hours of the day that you're eating, and then the rest of the hours would be the hours of the day that you're fasting. So the next question.
Sorry, Kira, what about time window eating? And we said we can't do timed eating, TE, it's a little short, but TW.
Yeah, timed window eating.
Think about it. We didn't really touch on what that window could be. Now's a good time to do that. So the for metabolism and weight loss, they say you want to get your eating into to 8 hours. So there's actually a research study where they took they had, I think it was mice, but humans would, if they ate the same amount of caloric food, it didn't matter what it was. So they ate their typical breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever they wanted, but they had it over a larger period of time. So maybe a 12 or 16-hour window. So that would include the late night snacking, breakfast, lunch, dinner. So a long span of eating. Then they said the other group has to eat that same amount of food in a shorter time. So they could eat whatever they wanted, but they had to do it. They timed it between an 8-hour and a 10-hour and a 12-hour. And they found the people who followed the 8-hour window, regardless of what they ate, lost weight. And so it's less about what, it wasn't health food that they were having. So that 8-hour window was the important variable, which may be difficult for people to start right in at. But if you say, okay, start at a 12-hour and then try to get 10 and then try to get 8, that's an interesting thing to play with to find your sweet spot.
Yeah. And I find too that, like, especially in practice with women, like, because with women who are still menstruating and they have these hormone changes, like, things do change through the month. So sometimes I find that even that 8-hour window can even be a bit restrictive for people. Like, they do end up finding changes to menstrual cycle. It's a bit too stressful. So I think the question here is time restricted eating for everyone? And we really think yes, because it depends on how you're defining that window, right? So it doesn't have to be like, maybe a super restrictive window isn't good for everybody, but finding your sweet spot. So playing around with that, starting with the 12-hour, and then slowly seeing if you decrease it. And if you're finding a place where it's like, oh, I'm actually feeling, quite energized, and I don't feel really hungry, and you're tuning into your body and kind of allowing your rhythms to come out to see what is the best window for me.
Yeah. So we do really feel this way of eating is perfect for everyone. And then it's just about awareness of your times.
And individualizing to the times. And I think in terms of the best timing too, like, I do think when we're talking about this circadian aspect, it really is focusing on getting those, like, eating during the daylight hours. So really focusing your window on the daylight hours and not pushing it too far, because we know that when you eat too late before bed, it suppresses like our melatonin production and affects sleep and things like that. So you do want to try and focus on eating in the daylight hours.
Yeah. And when are your digestive juices working the most? And yeah, it's just so interesting to look at it this way. And we hope that this changes your approach to food and nutrition and nourishment. And so can you combine TWE with other diets?
Yeah.
And we put diets in quotation because reminding you we don't like the word diet. We're talking about nourishment. So can you combine it with other things you may love or know that it works well for you this one way, like autoimmune paleo or fasting or water fasting even? So can you combine this? So the answer is yes, absolutely. You want to listen to your cues. I remember when bulletproof coffee was a big thing. I loved it. It was the first time. Have you ever put butter or fat in your coffee? And it sounded gross at the beginning, but it actually was so delicious. But I did that for a period of time. And then I got to the point I didn't want it. I just did not crave that buttery, rich, whatever. I just wanted a green juice. And so seasonally we change too, right? And the light is dark is changing now. And so what's your summer eating versus your winter eating, fall eating?
Yeah, because we had a good question that just came in about that, like about what about winter coming in the longer nights? So yes, it does happen. That maybe it's unrealistic to have all of your food if the sun is setting at like 5 p.m. or something like that when we get right into winter. So I think it's just kind of, doing your best in those daylight hours to be eating. But if you're eating a little bit later, then that's fine. And that also goes back to that 3-2-1 sleep thing, that at least you're making sure that you're having that break between your last meal and going to bed, just for the optimal sleep component too.
Do we see a downside with this way of eating? And so we'll both answer, I don't see a downside here. What do you think?
I don't think so, as long as it's done right. Like, again, it's not about focusing on that restrictive part and like, oh, I need to like go by the clock and I can only eat in an 8-hour window. Like you need to bring in the element of listening to your body, listening to like where you are in your menstrual cycle, or even not like even in your cortisol rhythms. Like if you're going through a period of life where it's very stressed and your cortisol levels are sky high, then you don't want to put an extra stress on your body. But I think as long as you're individualizing it to you and listening to your body, then I don't think so either.
Yeah.
And then how long should it take to see results?
The typical timing for this with anything, right? 20 days to make a habit to really ingrain. So everything we're talking about, you don't have to be perfect right away. We want you to slowly integrate. But with this type of nutrition approach, it's going to take about 6 weeks or more to see a change. And so it's and also remembering there's no We don't want you we want you to have your own process to get there, to analyze your windows. It takes time to really get to those rhythms. So 6 weeks or longer is really what it takes to get into a groove with this.
Yeah. And for those rhythms to really like set in your body too, like things don't happen just overnight. Like your circadian rhythm doesn't shift to be more optimal like overnight. It does take some time. And someone, so this is good because it says we have here as snacking okay. And then someone had asked how far apart should meals be in the 8-hour window. So if that's what you're choosing to go for. And yes, definitely like snacking is okay. I think the other thing to remember is that other conversation we had the other day when we were really speaking to insulin and how we, no matter what we eat, like we still are, just the process of eating is going to release some insulin. So we do want to make sure that we're not constantly like grazing and snacking the whole day. Like even within then, it's really, I think about eating like a satisfying meal that you're like, okay, I ate enough, I feel good, and now I can go a couple of hours to the next one. But you're still likely going to have a snack in there in the day. And if you're following your hunger cues, and that's great.
And oh, I had a thought on that. Sorry.
On the snacking?
My thought was this: there's power in the gap, right?
Yeah.
Same as when we're stressed about something and we're reacting in the moment, there's no gap there. And when you can learn to find a gap, you find some peace in the stressful moment or that reaction. Same with nutrition. There's power in the gap between food. Know what your body is doing in between to heal, recover, repair, get ready for the next meal. Okay, alcohol. Alcohol, how does it affect you and your rhythms? And what is the best timing for alcohol?
So yes, alcohol is, we know that it is going to, if you have alcohol too close before bed, we know that that's definitely going to impact your sleep. And so having it probably before dinner or with dinner, so at least you're having some food with it, is probably going to be, I would say, the best time to have that.
And the longer you have, if you have after dinner and on into the evening, it's just prolonging your window, right? So enjoy, if you're going to have a glass of wine or whatnot with a dinner or socializing or whatnot, have it earlier on. And so that, time to go home, or you're at your home, but then when now I'm shut off, no more going into my system.
Yeah, and it's going to help with the whole, like it'll be going through your system faster then. Like remember we were talking about that liver time of like the 1 to 3 kind of AM. So then the earlier that you have that, the easier. I mean, not too early to drink, but just in terms of like timing it with your circadian rhythm.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then how does coffee affect your eating window? We touched on this. It is priming your digestion. You have coffee, and especially if you have milk and sugar or cream or anything in it, it is definitely food at this point going in. But when it's just black coffee, how does that affect you? And research does show it is opening your window. And I listen to that and go, ooh, but I love my coffee first thing. And so there's good, better, best, right? And so a little bit of coffee priming, opening your digestive system, it's not the same as a full meal. So for me right now, my sort of gentle way into my eating window is I'm allowing myself to have my coffee not counted in my food window.
Yeah, and there are a lot of questions coming in about that. So I think it is back to that if you are having it as like the black coffee or black tea without the added like proteins or fats or anything in there, same with just the lemon water, then yes, that probably counts towards, it is like, if you can count that as your like eating window because you're not eating food. We're just talking about whether it's getting your whole system going. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
And then, off track, on track. So we really want to talk about this in terms of transforming that mindset of like the cheat day or the cheat meal, and knowing that I did not come up with this, someone else did, but saying it's not a cheat, it's a choice. Like I'm choosing to have whether it's a meal off or whether it's a weekend and you're having a meal later than you normally would. Like, this is a choice to enjoy this meal, like with my family. Maybe I'm going to end up eating right before bed or something like that, but it's a choice to do that. And then, this whole thing's a journey. It's a process. So then the next day you wake up and you just decide how you want to fuel yourself that day to feel best. But there's no such thing as a cheat, I think.
I love that. And that's such a perfect example of transforming your mindset, because, feeling off track, feeling sluggish, feeling heavy, feeling depressed, those emotions are real and valid and part of it. It's about how can you move yourself through it. And so when you think I'm cheated, you feel bad, right? So changing it to choice is I choose, and you can have whatever you want. You can choose what you want. And so the more you give yourself that freedom and flexibility and choice and less guilt and shame or whatever it is, you don't want it, And so practice transforming your mindset. Anytime you notice you've said something that, that doesn't resonate with the mindset rhythm I want. What is a perfect TWE day? I think this is different for every person.
Yeah, no such thing.
Dr. Kira and I wanted to share our windows. And so I'll start. I'm fascinated by this eating window, and I find it makes me having more awareness on what it means and why. So I want my hormones in rhythm. I want to get the best night's sleep. I want to produce the most melatonin or other neurotransmitter hormones. I want to repair my body overnight. It changes when I eat. And so in the past, I might, it might be late at night. I've just finally, daughter's gone to bed, and I feel like a piece of chocolate. And in the past, and it's okay to think, yeah, that's fine, I'll have a piece of chocolate. But then I found when I understood this a little bit further, I didn't want that. I didn't need that. I didn't really need it before, but I liked it and I chose it and it was good. So I love having more awareness on why we do this. And so for me, I can not have breakfast in the morning. My body runs well on that. I like it. When I grew up, it was, you probably can agree with this, from the not too long ago when we left our house in the morning, you can't leave your house without having breakfast, right? Going to school, your parents, you have to have breakfast. Now there's so much more understanding and research over why that may not be the best scenario. It's good in some ways and maybe not in others. So for me, I love just having a coffee in the morning and maybe eat at 11. And then my last bite on a good day, I would try to have it finished at 7 and then in bed by 10. What's yours, Kira?
Yeah, so this is great because it's really speaking to our individuality, because Dr. Tara and I are completely different in this respect, where I absolutely need to have breakfast. I'm actually not much of a coffee drinker at all, because I've already have too much energy and I'm quite go anyway. But if I was to just have a coffee and not eat anything, I wouldn't be my best self, that's for sure. So I definitely have breakfast in the morning. I like a good, satisfying breakfast. It's going to get me through a couple hours. So I'll probably eat that around 8ish. And I'm not really strict about my times, because I really listen to my body and really follow how I'm feeling. But I do know that I am one of those people as well, that I do like to eat dinner on the earlier side, because I definitely don't sleep well. So I know that through trial and error, that if I eat too late at night, that's definitely going to affect my sleep. So, and I even want to touch, and so it's all about individualized to you. And again, I don't want this to come across as another diet that you need to stick to either, because it's more about thinking about giving yourself that rest overnight, that break overnight, so that your body can repair and regenerate and get your hormones in flow and all of that. But there was even a question here about, can I eat too little in this way of eating? And yeah, you could, if you were trying to make a really short window and not getting enough food in the day. So you definitely have to make sure that within that time, it's not about less food. You need to make sure that you're eating enough and feeling satisfied and feeling good.
Yeah, the thing with the window is you eat the same amount of food in a shorter time. So it shouldn't lessen your food intake. It just means you're eating it in a smaller window. Mm-hmm. Don't feel restricted. We're taking that word out. No longer is R in this.
No restriction.
Yeah. And then Oh,
There was another question here too, because it was saying, what is more important? So the 3 hours of no eating before bed, or making sure that you've eaten enough calories in the day, because they had a meal at 4 p.m. and then was sidetracked and ended up not eating again because it was too close to bedtime, and then chose not to eat and not sure if that's right. So I would say, again, this is like a in the moment like experience, because what I would say is sleep can definitely be impacted too if you don't eat enough. So if you, like, for certain people, like if you're going a huge time between your last meal and sleep, and then during the night, if you're prone to blood sugar crashes, like that could happen and then that could wake you up. So you do want to make sure that you're eating enough through the day, but then that night when you chose to not to, if you're like, I think I'm okay going to bed without it, or choosing something small, so you're not ramping up your internal temperature and stuff like that too much to affect sleep. What do you think?
A thought on that too. It can be a bit
Yeah.
like your sleep deficits too. So if you can do it and not eat, like if you're starving, so I got the yogurt for our daughter, but and I was worried she was starving and in pain. So if you're that type of hungry, maybe have something. But if you think, no, I can go without eating, haven't eaten enough today, there will be a deficit the next day. You might want to eat more the next day, and that's okay too. It's like you're adjusting for that rhythm.
Yeah, that's such a good point. So it's really like how hungry are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And practice, right? Just keep practicing it. I loved what my mom said. And on my way in, she just said, "Oh yeah, I ate my dinner last night," and then I was thinking, okay, I have to go to bed at this time. And it's just interesting getting your body back into a clock, honoring your clock.
Honoring the clock.
There was a question about other supplements and timing. So great thought. Let's go through that. So the supplements in question were vitamin C, omega-6, probiotics, and CoQ10 in terms of timing. So when I look at those supplements, the first thing, if this was me putting together in a treatment schedule, I actually think all of these would happen in the morning, right? But we're talking about, and we can say why, but we're talking about rhythm-wise, when is the best time to have these? So if you're not eating in the morning, then the best time would be at lunch. Omega-6 is a fat. We tend to look more at omega-3, not 6. So omega-6 you'll get a lot in food. Omega-3 is the one that you don't get enough of per se. And then just as an aside, omega-9 is the olive oil. So I always discourage the omega-3, 6, 9 supplement. Go to more of an omega-3. But that could be breakfast, lunch, or dinner. There's no set time on that. It's really just adding to your food in a way. So maybe you can look at if you have the heaviest content of fat in your dinner, maybe balance this out and put it more at lunch. But then it becomes about compliance and when is easiest. I find probiotics typically happen first thing, like get them in when you're taking your supplements. It doesn't have to be at any time. So it's more about when are you going to get it in. And then CoQ10, that is more of an energy supportive antioxidant. And so that would be earlier in the day as well. And vitamin C, I divide the dose out of that. So it can be breakfast, lunch, dinner, or lunch and dinner, or breakfast, dinner. While it does support energy factors, it's about how can I get someone to take it 2 to 3 times a day? And that's my decision process. Do you have anything to add on that, Kira?
No, I think that's great. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of going through why are we recommending supplements? So is there a reason why we put it in a certain part of the day, better with food, better without food, and then the compliance piece too, in terms of, because we all know it can be hard to remember when to take certain supplements. So sometimes certain times of the day are just easier for you to remember.
Yeah, magnesium, typically evening. But if someone has anxiety during the day, magnesium, a certain form of magnesium can happen earlier in the day. All right, do we have more questions coming through on that?
I see, one more question here, which was, should we practice eating at the same time, even if not hungry?
Ooh, tricky.
I can get started on a project, and before I know it's 2 p.m. and I haven't eaten since 5 the night before, but I'm getting a headache, which is my trigger. So I have a couple thoughts on this, because on one hand, I don't think you need to be I don't think you need to force yourself to eat when you're not hungry. But if you know that you're someone who ends up, because hypoglycemia, like not eating enough, is a huge headache trigger. So if you know that you're prone to those, then I would say that you would want to be a little more conscientious of just making sure that you are getting food, however, like every 3 hours, every 4 hours, whatever it is that kind of, that feels good for you. But again, like I don't think it's about forcing yourself to eat if you're not feeling hungry either.
And it can be little steps too. If the goal, if you're feeling really off balance and this is all you're trying to get it in and hunger cues are disrupted and different things, then little by little, right? So maybe having a bit of food when you're not really hungry, but rhythmically you should be eating, have a little bit, and then see how you slowly adjust your overall rhythms.
Yeah, and I'll say that too. Like sometimes if I know that I have a really busy morning and I'm like, I know that I'm not going to eat lunch until a certain time, then I might have like a bigger breakfast, even if I'm like, oh, I don't know if I need such a big one, but I'm like, I know that like it's going to be longer before my next meal. So it's okay to kind of think about how your day is going to be as well, and kind of plan accordingly that way. And it's just my way of caring for myself, because I know that I don't want to get to a point where I'm like starving. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to give myself a little bit more now, and then I'll feel better later.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure other questions will come up, and please, as they do, chat them in. We're checking them. Let's move on to your fifth rhythm, movement. And so we did cover this yesterday. We sent it as a video where I was having a conversation with Sarah Goodenough, who is a personal trainer and nutrition coach. I really resonate with her approach, and I loved some of the philosophies we said in this in our conversation. So make sure you watch that. We talked about mobility versus resistance training and your hormones. Resistance training is where you boost your hormones, your testosterone, you get more of a cortisol and an insulin response. It really does. It's very important for metabolism to get resistance training into your routines. The first and most important thing before that is mobility. And so I love, Sarah said, first move well and then move often. So getting your movement patterns working as they should. The chiropractic medicine can play in here of don't stress your joints and want it if they're all out of alignment. You want to first bring everything back into the right alignment so you don't create pain when you're bringing in some of these new routines or old or just habituated movements. Really work on your mobility. So stretching becomes an important part of movement. Aerobic exercise, yes, is good. And walking, we talked about that. We want you to move all day. We don't want you to just move during your exercise phase or just walking to wherever, if it's a walking your dog or walking distance. You have to get movement all through your day. So if you've been sitting for too long, so we've been sitting now for almost an hour, after this presentation, you get up and you move around and wiggle your body or dance or run up and down the stairs, counts as well. Just try not to be static and sitting for the majority of your day, which is actually what happens. Movement, movement, movement. And that will get your cortisol, your testosterone, your estrogen, progesterone, your melatonin, your insulin. It'll help that cell-to-cell communication happen better. And then we talked about what is your hard. So walking, while it's not, it can become routine and you're not challenging your resistance training or your muscles enough. It's still good movement, but is it no longer hard? And we don't want exercise to be hard, but it should be challenging enough where you feel like you get a sweat or you experience your heart rate rising. And so always ask yourself, what is your hard or what is your challenge? And then I said the moving well, moving often, movement versus exercise versus rest. On our Facebook chat line, I had mentioned rest is also an important part of movement. And that's because we can get into this routine of go, 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 push, push, push. Exercise has to be a certain way, and that makes people not want to do it. And so knowing that you have to allow rest in there. I'm a big fan of a certain yoga where they don't do yoga on moon days. It's actually the studio is closed, and that is like an encouraged rest versus feeling guilty you didn't get movement or exercise in. So honor your rest times too as part of your movement plan.
Yeah, and that's when the repair and rejuvenation and all the benefits come, right? Is when you're actually resting. Because there's a question here that said, please define resistance training.
Ooh, define. I wish Sarah was here with us.
Well, resistance training is like when you're loading your muscles. So it's like whether you're using body weight or you're using weights and strength. So you're actually putting a load to your muscle, and then you're like, and it's with that kind of versus like the aerobic or the stretching and things like that.
Mm-hmm. There's resistance training programs like HIIT programs where there's no weights in it, but you still actually are challenging your load. You're activating your muscles. It's not just cardio on a stationary bike or a treadmill or whatnot. But I mean, as I said, that some people really push hard on on the bike, and is that resistance? A little bit, yeah. Anytime you're working your muscles more so than just aerobic movement, that would be resistance.
Yeah. So this is a recap of our 3 core rhythms for wellness and weight loss. So the movement piece, which we just touched on now, and there's that video that you guys can check out if you haven't seen it. So when to exercise, what type of exercise, what if you dislike exercise, and then chatting about the mobility and the rest. And then the micronutrients and nutrition piece. So when to eat, what to eat, talking about cellular health for metabolism and nutrient absorption.
I want to add to the micronutrient portion how we mentioned it at the very start.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The resting, digesting, sitting, making it count would fall under that nutrition.
Yeah.
And sorry, also back to the movement, I also wanted to just highlight there's a mobility demo exercise within the video we posted. So if you scroll through to 7 minutes in, Sarah Goodenough is walking me through 4 exercises, very easy exercises, mobility-based movements that we coordinate our breath with, breath, movement, muscle. So there's 4 exercises, and then we combine it together to be a 5-minute routine. So if you go to minute 7, you'll quickly learn what the movements are, and then Sarah and I do it together. So try that. It's 5 minutes, and we challenge you to, your homework actually for today is to do that mobility demo.
Great.
Were you, I think you were going to say something about nutrition, and then I went back to movement, Kara, or maybe.
Oh, yeah. I think I was just going to touch on the what you said about that we said how you eat as well, right? So about when you're eating, and then the state that you're eating in. So just touching on what you had said about you want to be in that parasympathetic rest and digest. So just trying to bring some intention and focus, and just, it's so hard, but focusing on just your food while you're eating and not doing a bunch of other things as well.
Or look at a sunrise, sunset, or a beautiful,
it's the dream.
Your office wall move to a parasympathetic scan of the room. Okay, then homework 3, 2, 1. We want to hear from you. How did that go? Anything you noticed in it? Was it, a lot of times it's hard to stop the screen time. Did you challenge yourself? Did you do that? Did you get to bed 3 hours after? Was that new for you?
I think the screen time is the hardest one.
Mm-hmm. Admittedly, I did not put my phone in another room last night or the night before, because it's right now my alarm in a way.
Yeah.
Not alarm, just I wake and then I look at the time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I find it really affects my sleep if I have the phone in the room. So it's definitely not in there, but it's just turning off all screens an hour before bed can be tough, but it does really help with sleep for sure.
So do you have an alarm clock in your room or no clocks?
Yeah, so I don't wake up with an alarm.
So then you wake up, go out of your room and to see what time it is.
Yeah, like my body just kind of, yeah.
That is the goal. Okay, I also, while we're sharing about 3, 2, 1 and inputting any questions that come up, I wanted to highlight some amazing answers that we've received in from people. And so keep sharing this homework page too. Accountability is good, knowing that we're looking at it. And so I loved this person's comment that they're definitely noticing an awareness, if you can see my mouse, around no movement. And actually, I'll change this handout to say movement, not exercise.
Yeah.
Person, it highlighted for them, ooh, yes, I need movement in my day. And then I love sharing people's mindset entries. It's really important. And so this person listed tired, foggy, and I think
Relax.
relaxed.
Okay.
Okay. So it was a bit of a mix of both of empowered and then saying how it is. And so you see that word tired and okay. And she said, I can't see the fine print post trip or maybe, yeah, I think it says post.
Oh yeah.
Right. So they're tired from that. So they know why they're tired, but okay, you're allowed to be tired, but you know, you don't want to feel tired. So it's okay. I'm feeling tired. If I could feel the opposite in this moment for my best health, what would that be? And you'll chat, like be curious of what comes up. And it might be calm. I want to feel cozy or comfortable or whatever, a different word. So you can come in at your mindset with an opposite. If you're feeling sluggish, heavy, frustrated. Okay, I'm feeling frustrated that I just can't get these rhythms right. Okay, what is the opposite of frustrated? Patience, practice, effort, and peace, right? At peace with yourself and patience that you can do it. And then I also wanted to highlight eating windows. And we talked about this already. So just really making sure you understand first bite is the opening of your eating window, last bite is the closing of the window, and then knowing how many hours that was. I don't want this, we don't want this to be restrictive in any way. We want it to be interesting and helping you tune into your body further.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something that you don't even think about until you do kind of go through this at the end of the day, and then you're like, oh yeah, like I didn't, that was how long I ate for. I didn't move today. It's just such a great awareness tool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can expand this handout out to say when is breakfast, when is lunch, when is dinner, because that would help with that consistency of it too.
Mm-hmm.
And then eating all over the map on different days. Actually, we will post that up as a really good tracking handout too. Okay, there's some few questions, and then we'll just share with you what we're going to talk about tomorrow. And okay, so I'm on the Q&A side, Kira.
Oh, the Q&A?
Oh, wait, no, I'm not. Oh, no, I was on the.
I think we already answered that one. Deirdre wrote, was contemplating getting an old school clock to stop me looking at the screen when I wake in the middle of the night. That's a great idea.
Yes,
to have
you and I both, Deirdre.
Yeah, love it. And then when breaking your fast, is it best to break it with a protein/fat, something not as heavily carb based so you don't get a sugar spike? I definitely think incorporating protein is really, really important. Protein, fat, like a well-balanced meal, I think is a great way to kind of break that fast.
Mm-hmm. Some good things to break it are hemp hearts.
Mm-hmm.
Not on something. They're rich in protein and
protein.
Fat.
Yeah, protein, fat.
Yeah, and avocado and hemp hearts would be great. But if it's where you want to go first and what you want to focus in on for your metabolism. So protein is a great one. Some lean like fish or a more protein-rich meal.
Eggs.
Yeah, or you can do just fat. It tends to be more protein or fat and less carb. It depends on what your reasons are. And then, oh, about the clocks. One thing I also wanted to try is, does anybody have this? The sunrise clock.
So it's so interesting because I actually got one of those, but then it still had the time displayed like really bright. And so I was like, that kind of defeats the purpose because I wanted, like, I don't like any times. If I wake up in the night, I don't want to see it. So I wanted it to just light. Maybe I didn't get the right one, but I kind of got it and I was like, oh, this isn't what I wanted.
Right. I've heard there's vibrating ones too, that it slowly starts to, like a sound happens and then it turns up. Did we, okay, well, we are going to keep, sorry, do you see another question in there?
No, I think that was everything.
Okay, perfect. Keep the questions coming. We'll be on the chat line later. And then just what we're doing tomorrow. Just one second.
So tomorrow we're going to talk all about hormone rhythms and assessment. So we'll talk about, so we're kind of going to go tomorrow into how to get your thyroid hormone. What is the sweet spot for that? We're going to go into the other hormones like estrogen and testosterone and how those impact your metabolism, liver health, as well as testing and things like that. So that's what we'll be covering tomorrow.
We're going to show you some examples of the Dutch. A lot of people have asked about that and to really understand what it looks like. And so you're going to have lots of assessment tools to really pull together. Watch for our handouts that we put on the chat and in the email. And we hope you enjoyed this. Let us know what you thought. And let's go on to day 4.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, bye everyone.
Bye.